各位傳媒朋友，多謝大家今日嚟呢個記者會。行政長官會先用中文同英文向大家發言，之後會接受大家提問。The Chief Executive will speak in Chinese and English first, and then we will answer your questions. 行政長官請。
好， 各位傳媒朋友，各位香港市民，昨天呢，我係做咗一個錄像嘅講話，詳細同埋完整咁回應咗有關於喺修例工作社會嘅5大訴求。更加重要呢，係提出咗4項嘅行動，希望能夠讓我哋喺今日香港面對嘅困局可以走出一步。我哋嘅4項行動，第一係特區政府會正式撤回條例草案，完全釋除市民嘅疑慮。個做法呢，將會係由保安局局長喺立法會復會之後去宣布撤回條例草案。我留意到可能亦都又有一啲嘅疑慮，話呢個保安局局長呢個嘅舉措會唔會有其他嘅目的？我喺呢度非常之清楚明確咁表示，呢個議事嘅程序只係有一個目的，就係撤回呢條例嘅草案，而且佢只係涉及由保安局局長作一個宣佈，並不需要議員嘅發言或者辯論，亦都唔需要喺立法會呢嚟到去投票通過嘅。第二，我哋會全力支持監警會嘅工作。我向大家承諾，政府係會認真跟進監警會日後提交嘅報告建議。我留意到我提及嘅監警會委聘國際嘅專家，喺昨天監警會亦都發出一個新聞公佈，係詳細介紹咗呢5位國際專家小組嘅成員，佢哋分別係嚟自英國、加拿大、澳洲同埋新西蘭，都係非常之富有經驗嘅專家，肯定可以為監警會嘅審視工作注入一個客觀性同埋公正性。第三，由呢個月開始，我同我嘅所有司局長，當然包括我身邊嘅政務司司長同埋民政事務局局長呢，我哋會走入社區同市民對話，等社會各個階層、唔同背景、唔同立場嘅朋友都可以透過呢個對話平台，將佢哋嘅種種不滿直接講出嚟，等我哋可以一齊咧去探討解決嘅方法。第四，經過咗2-3個月因為修例而引起嘅衝突，其實社會大眾都意識到，我哋眼前嘅矛盾係反映咗長期積壓嘅政治、經濟同埋社會問題。我哋亦都具體好聽到呢啲深層次嘅問題係涉及到房屋同埋土地供應啦、貧富懸殊、社會公義、青年人嘅機遇，以及公眾參與政府嘅決策等。我希望我哋建立嘅對話平台可以俾大家更加深入、更加直接咁同我哋一齊探討呢啲問題。我哋都會邀請社會嘅領袖、專家同埋學者，就住呢啲深層次嘅問題進行獨立嘅研究同埋檢討，向政府提出建議。各位市民、各位傳媒嘅朋友，我同埋我嘅團隊呢係好希望我昨天提出嘅4項行動可以為打破困局行出第一步，為香港嘅社會呢帶嚟積極嘅改變。I now say a few words in English. In my statement last evening, I provided a detailed and comprehensive response to each of the 5 demands raised in society over this legislative amendment exercise. More importantly, I outlined 4 actions which the government will take in order to help Hong Kong to move forward. Action number 1 is for us to formally withdraw the bill in order to fully allay public concerns. Since my announcement, I noticed that there are still some worries about this particular procedure. I want to reiterate here that the sole purpose of the electoral procedure is to withdraw the bill. This involves the Secretary for Security as a responsible government official to announce in the Legislative Council that the bill will be withdrawn. There will be no debate and no voting. The second action is we will fully support the work of the Independent Police Complaints Council. I noticed that IPCC has announced yesterday details of the members of a panel of international experts, which will help in the assessment and the recommendations in the fact-finding study. These international experts are really renowned experts in their respective fields, and they come from the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. I pledge that the government will seriously follow up recommendations made in the IPCC's report. Third, from this month onward, I and my principal officials, of course including the Chief Secretary for Administration and the Secretary for Home Affairs, we will reach out to the community to start a direct dialogue. People from all walks of life with different stances and backgrounds are invited to share their views and air their grievances. We must find ways to address the discontent in society and look for solutions. The fourth action really requires us to have a better understanding of our society. This is because after more than 2 months of social unrest, it is obvious to many of us that the discontentment in society extends far beyond the bill. It covers political, economic, and social issues, including the oft-mentioned housing and land supply, income distribution, social justice and mobility, and opportunities for our young people, as well as how the public could be fully engaged in the government's decision-making. We can discuss all these deep-seated fundamental issues in our dialogue platform to be established. And I will also, in addition, invite community leaders, professionals, and academics to independently examine and review society's deep-seated problems and to advise the government on finding solutions. My team and I, we hope very much that these 4 actions can help our society to move forward. Let's look for solution. 多謝晒大家。
而家係提問時間，請大家先舉手同埋用咪發問。Now it's time for Q&A, so please raise your hand, and when picked, please use your microphone to raise your question. 白衫嗰位記者。
係林太你好啊，其實就係想問翻呢，即係其實香港人呢，由3月開始呢已經叫你撤回修例，你就6月15號先宣布暫緩。市民呢6月中叫你答應5大訴求，你就等香港人冇咗8條人命、3隻眼、過千人被捕之後，你琴日先至宣布撤回。點解你永遠都係即係後知後覺，要等足3個月先會改變立場一次呢？你而家呢個做法係咪為即係緊急立法即係鋪路呢？咁另外就係咧，你話監警會即係會支持佢個工作，但係其實連監警會個主席阿梁定邦已經講咗咧，監警會係冇權力傳召證人同埋搜集證據，亦都覺得政府係唔應該排除成立呢個獨立調查委員會。點解你琴日都係仲係要否決咧？最尾就係你咧，之前咧閉門見商界嘅時候，你自己都話自己咧係對香港犯咗不可原諒嘅浩劫，即係引起咗呢個不可原諒嘅浩劫。民調亦都顯示你已經係成為香港歷來民望最低嘅特首。點解你至今仍然覺得自己有能力去管治香港呢？係咪違反咗當年你對香港人講主流意見，認為你不能夠擔任行政長官，你係會辭職呢個承諾呢？唔該。
多謝3個問題。昨天我公布嘅4個行動，只有一個目的，就係希望為今日香港呢個困局嚟到走出一步。喺8月18日，如果大家記得呢，我曾經係講過，我哋找緊一個相對平靜，即係話唔係喺週末嘅時候有好多嘅暴力、好多嘅衝突、好多嘅互相嘅襲擊嘅情況之下呢，我哋找緊咗嗰個機會，就係公佈係有一個對話嘅平台。喺自從公佈咗之後呢2個禮拜，我哋亦都見到好多人，呢啲人本身亦都係嚟自唔同嘅背景、唔同嘅政治嘅立場。我哋聽得非常之清楚，就係話要展開呢個對話都要有一個基礎。咁所以琴日公佈嘅4項嘅行動係為呢個對話咧係提供一個基礎。呢個係 一個唯一嘅目的，所以其他嘅揣測話點解喺呢個時候做某一個嘅行動呢，都係唔正確嘅嚇。第二方面呢，監警會係一個法定同埋獨立嘅機構，亦都係一個專責去處理有關警方嘅問題嘅，無論係對於個別警員嘅投訴，或者係一啲警務處喺處理一啲事件裏邊嘅方法。咁所以我哋政府嘅立場由始至終都係認為我哋應該係用好呢個既定嘅法定同埋獨立嘅機制，而唔係去另設一個調查委員會咧嚟到去調查警隊喺今次作嘅行動。但當然大家留意到啦，監警會自從七月初決定做呢個審視嘅工作咧，佢哋都係盡咗好多嘅努力嚟到去讓呢個工作而家擺喺大家面前，係一個非常之客觀、認真、持平嘅工作。包括為呢個審視嘅工作咧，係成立咗一個專責組。呢個專責組亦都要向一個督導委員會嚟到去交代，亦都係委聘咗我剛才講嘅5位嘅國際專家，亦都係不斷咁呼籲社會大眾咧去監警會提供佢哋見到嘅事情啦，或者一啲資料。咁呢啲所有嘅工作咧，係肯定可以讓監警會今次嘅審視工作咧，係一個我剛才講係認真、係客觀、係公平。而我亦都係好早階段咧已經係承諾咗，當監警會向政府，事實上我本人提交呢個報告嘅時候咧，個報告咧係全面公開。咁昨天嘅講話裏邊咧就承諾，當監警會喺呢個報告裏邊提出咗嘅建議咧，特區政府一定係會認真去跟進嘅。至於我本人嗰個立場，我已經喺呢幾個月咧係講咗好多次啦嚇。我同我個團隊咧仍然係有呢一份嘅熱誠，有呢個承擔，喺香港而家處於一個非常困難嘅時期，係繼續做我哋可以做嘅嘢，幫香港咧盡早能夠止暴制亂，恢復社會秩序，讓我哋嘅經濟同埋民生可以繼續向前。
下一條，粉紅色衫嗰位。
特首您好，我是中央广播电视总台央视和 CGTN 记者。您刚才提到将邀请社会各界人士就社会深层次的各种问题进行独立的研究与探讨，能不能请您更加详细的给我们介绍一下，将邀请哪些人士就哪些社会问题进行怎样的探讨？谢谢。
其实我们在过去一段日子也参考了在其他地方它出现了一些大型的社会的行动，尤其是先是一些比较有暴力的事件，往往它都是反映它背后有很多可能过去一段时间没有积极解决的问题啊。你刚才问是什么问题？当然这个是什么问题还是要经过一个跟社会大众讨论对话，我们才掌握得更好。但是我也举了一些例子，当然包括我们现在面对的房屋的问题啊，这个土地供应不足的问题啊，香港的青年的机会的问题啊，向上流动啊，以及社会公益或者是一般的公众能否参与政府的决策的问题啊。但是我相信经过这个对话平台，我们非常努力去听大众的意见，可能这个问题的单子还要长，还有其他的问题。那么是什么人士参与这个研究？这个独立的研究，现在我觉得最好的还是先把这个对话平台建立起来，我们到这个社区里边多听你的意见。第三就是，其实这个做法我们也参考了早前有一些朋友也提出，我本人也这个研究过，就是在英国2011年发生了很大的暴乱往后，还是委任了一个4人的小组，就是研究各方面的深层次的问题。但是目前我觉得我们不应该再由政府把所有的这个事情都定下来。 我们必须要展示一个非常愿意、很积极的跟社会各界去共同研究香港的问题。
The lady in right. Yes.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Fire Master from Reuters. After 3 months of protests, what has made you change your mind to withdraw the extradition bill? And was this your own initiative or was it from the central government? Thank you.
It is not exactly correct to describe this as a change of mind. You will remember on the 15th of June, and that is only within a few days, I announced the suspension of the bill. And of course, I also say that the legislative work on this bill will come to an end. And then in early July, in light of the worries about what is going to happen to this bill, I said the bill is dead. Okay. So as far as the substance is concerned, there is simply no plan to take forward the bill in light of the controversy. But since my announcement of a dialogue with society last month, about 2 weeks ago, we have been meeting a lot of people from different backgrounds with different political positions. And they gave me this piece of advice, which I now felt that was a very pertinent piece of advice, is that if the government wanted to start a dialogue, the government should also take the initiative to provide a basis for the dialogue. And the withdrawal of the bill to fully allay public concerns is one of those important bases for a dialogue. So I'm sharing with you the sort of developments over the last 2 months on how I have come to that decision. The decision is one of the Hong Kong SAR government, in the same way that the bill was introduced. The bill was initiated, introduced, and taken forward by the Hong Kong SAR government. But I'm sure you want to ask about the position of the Central People's Government, so may I just also supplement that throughout the whole process, the Central People's Government took the position that they understood why we have to do it. They respected my view, and they supported me all the way. So whether it is in the earlier stages of processing the bill and then suspension of the bill and then withdrawing the bill yesterday, this is the same position.
Please wait for your turn, please. 前排Tony.
Mrs. Lam, Tony from South China Morning Post. You still haven't answered the question of why you are making this decision at this juncture, because lawmakers from across the political spectrum have said it's too little and too late. So why did you only make this decision now? What went wrong with the government decision making? Because in your previous answer, those comments that were raised to you in the dialogue were raised in March and April, but you insisted on using the word suspend and the bill is dead, and insisted on not using the word withdraw. So that was indeed a turning point in your decision making. So can you further elaborate on that? And on Beijing's role, you haven't answered the question as well, because on Tuesday you showed no sign of backing down on any demands when my media friend asked you the question about 5 demands. But on Tuesday afternoon, HKMAO spokesman said we must separate the demands of the peaceful protesters with the violent radicals. And then on yesterday, you made this U-turn. So this shows that Beijing was pulling the strings behind the Hong Kong government, or are you causing more trouble for Beijing when there's this all this geopolitics going on? And thirdly, the question on the police. A lot of people have said that it could have been a good idea for you to make the withdrawal in June or July. But now this movement is really about the police role in Hong Kong, and people have lost confidence in the police. So what would you do to really mend this problem? And even with the appointment of 2 new members, the IPCC is still a body dominated by pro-establishment voices. Would you do anything to change that composition of members? Thank you.
Well, there are several questions. One is, to To answer your question about whether my announcement on actions yesterday were too little, too late, I suggest, and I hope very much, that this will be looked at in context. I have announced a package of 4 actions. So each of those actions requires a process of deliberation, and taken together, I hope that they would provide a basis for a dialogue and help Hong Kong to break the current impasse. So it is not looking in isolation at one of the measures, but we have to look at the 4 actions together. Secondly, about the timing of the decision made in the 4 actions, particularly the formal withdrawal of the bill, I have said that for a while we were bothered by a lot of disruptions and disturbances and violent acts in society. But 2 weeks ago, there was a relatively peaceful moment, and seizing that particular moment, the government announced that we should move on to having a dialogue with the people with a view to finding a way forward. And since then, we have been meeting with different groups of people, including people from different political backgrounds or having different views on this particular subject. And we have given the advice, and which I accepted that advice, that if we were to have a dialogue, the government should be the first one to come out to provide a basis for that dialogue. And this formal withdrawal of the bill, although it doesn't make a difference in substance, because there has been no plan whatsoever since my earlier announcement to resume the bill. So despite being no difference in substance, this is going to be a useful measure for creating that basis for a dialogue. And yesterday was the best timing to do it. And there should be no further speculation about why we are doing it. The third point is it has always been our intention and our plan to stop violence. So while Hong Kong respects the freedom of expressions and freedom of assembly and marches, violence is not to be condoned. So if you ask anybody in society, including ourselves, of course, we would like the peaceful demonstrators not to go together with the protesters, or not to provide a legitimate basis for the really violent protesters who have been attacking our public infrastructure, blocking the roads, storming into buildings, and disrupting the normal operations of the airport and the rail. So this, I suppose, is a consensus of many people. Finally, on IPCC, it is not fair to describe IPCC as being dominated by certain people with certain political backgrounds. It is a credible and independent statutory body, and everyone being appointed by me onto IPCC is taking very seriously their independent and statutory function. The appointment of 2 new members is really to help with IPCC in a period which they are sort of shouldering almost unprecedented workload arising from the last 2-3 months, both in terms of dealing with individual complaints, and there are now quite a large number of such complaints, and also to conduct this very wide-ranging and detailed fact-finding study. Yeah.
白色3位。
I've answered that in English, actually, to a preceding question. The Central People's Government, throughout this exercise of the Fugitive Offenders Ordinance amendments, as always, respects one country, 2 systems. In the same way as the Chief Executive, with constitutional responsibilities under the Basic Law, I have to operate under one country, 2 systems. So specifically, the Central People's Government's position on this bill at various stages is they understand why the government, the Hong Kong SAR government, wanted to do it. They respect my decision, and they support it at every stage. So whether it is in the very early process of taking forward the bill, or 3 months ago in suspending the bill, or yesterday in formally withdrawing the bill. That is the same position of the Central People's Government.
第二排白色衫嗰位。
唔該，想問翻咧，即係就住嗰琴日提出嘅4項行動，其實係你向北京爭取翻嚟啊，定係北京嘅指示？同埋想問翻頭先講咗監警會係有效嘅制度啦，咁點解今次加入嘅2個人都係冇泛民背景嘅人士？其實呢2個人係咪政府嘅唯一人選？其實有冇人係曾經拒絕過邀請？同埋最後想問翻呢，即係好多人都批評撤得太遲啊，覺唔覺得今次政府係做咗一啲無謂嘅堅持，先會令到而家示威越演越烈？會唔會為此向公眾致歉？唔該。
我再重複一次啦，就我昨日公布嘅係4個行動，4個行動呢係一個目的，都係希望為香港尋找出路，希望能夠打破今日嘅困局。但呢4個行動呢都需要廣大市民合作嘅。至於喺第一個行動裏邊話正式去撤回呢條例草案，佢嘅重要性係為我哋要展開日後嘅行動同埋展開呢個對話提供一個基礎。因為正如我哋早前講，我今日亦都不斷重複咧，喺我宣布咗暫緩或者宣布咗所有嘅有關修例工作已經全停止，到撤回呢條例草案，大致上嗰個內容係一樣，因為我哋完全係冇計劃再喺本屆立法會咧去重新做呢個工作啊。但既然係認為佢係一個有用嘅基礎，我昨天呢就係公布咗，我哋係將會全面撤回呢個草案呢，為對話提供呢個基礎。中央政府嘅參與，我剛才已經講咗啦。喺一國兩制之下，我係要尊重呢個一國兩制，包括我哋自己嗰個制度。中央亦都係非常之堅定，咁係支持維護一國兩制喺香港嘅實施啊！咁所以喺整個嘅修例工作裏邊，大家可能都聽我講過，喺最初我哋為咗要堵塞漏洞或者處理一個個案，我哋提出呢個嘅修訂，中央政府係表示理解、尊重同埋支持。到喺6月中，我哋睇到社會真係有好大嘅爭議啊！我哋亦都喺解說嗰方面未能夠做得最好，就宣布要暫緩。當時中央政府嘅立場亦都係理解、尊重同埋支持。今日為咗讓香港走出呢個困局，希望能夠進入去下一階段，嚟到有一個對話，有一個探討社會問題嘅基礎。我昨天宣布係撤回呢個條例草案，中央政府嘅立場仍然都係理解、尊重同埋支持。
前排呢位女士，
監警會未答到。
前排呢位。
關於監警會，監警會係一個獨立法定嘅機構。監警會今日嘅每一位成員呢，當被委任之後，佢都係要履行佢呢個法定嘅功能，就係好客觀、好獨立、好持平咁去處理有關警方嘅事項，包括處理有關個別警務人員嘅投訴啦，同埋喺今次運用監警會嘅法定嘅職權去做一個全面嘅審視嘅工作啊。咁所以我哋唔應該去懷疑監警會每一位成員嘅客觀性同埋中立性。但係大家都記得我早前講過啦，由於今次呢件事件呢，真係引發咗大量嘅工作俾監警會，無論喺處理個別嘅投訴，或者喺呢個非常之客觀、全面、認真嘅審視嘅工作。咁所以我同監警會主席商量過呢，喺呢個時候如果能夠加多一啲嘅成員落去呢，係有幫助。咁所以呢，就喺昨天呢，就公布咗委任2位新嘅成員。喺呢個時候，社會已經係非常之對立，亦都係往往有一個所謂立場先行嘅情況之下呢，委任嘅成員應該係更加係中立，係冇政治嘅背景或者立場呢，係比較更加適合。但呢個唔等於往後喺政府嘅各個法定嘅機構或者諮詢組織裏邊 政府唔會係用一個更加包容嘅取態咧嚟到委任成員。事實上，如果大家有留意咧，過去2年我擔任行政長官咧，我都係希望能夠我哋嘅委員會咧係更加多元化，無論喺年齡組別嘅多元化我哋有青年嘅自薦計劃，或者喺少數族裔朋友嗰方面嘅多元化，我哋都注入咗好多呢啲新嘅成員。咁呢個將會仍然咧係我哋未來幾年點樣去讓更加多公眾人士、唔同背景、唔同立場可以參與政府決策嗰個嘅指引嚟嘅。
前邊呢位女仔。
林太兩個問題，第一就係其實你期望落區嘅時候，市民會同你講啲咩呢？因為民調而家主流最大嘅要求就係成立獨立調查委員會，會唔會係落區只係另外嘅一個 show， 去一啲建制派比較支持者多嘅地方嗰度去所謂聽取民意，然後甚至乎係學者話為10月施政報告做呢個白手套，即係所謂支持為你嘅施政報告去背書。第二個問題就係你都提到話止暴制亂，有人就質疑你係咪以退為進，即係拋出一個咁樣嘅讓步。如果再有任何嘅暴力示威，你就會推出緊急法。你可唔可以澄清一下？唔該。
第一咧就喺4個行動裏邊咧，其中一個就係我同我嘅司局長係會去落區直接聽取民意，所以並不存在只係去某一部分嘅市民嗰度聽取民意。我昨天嘅講話咧係清楚講明咧，我哋去聽嘅意見嘅市民咧係嚟自不同階層、不同政治背景、不同立場，我哋都係非常之願意去聽佢哋嘅意見，係直接去聽意見。事實上，自從我哋提出話要有一個對話平台咧，我哋都係收到有啲團體、有啲組別係好主動咁寫落嚟，我哋都想有一個對話嚇。咁我哋每一個咧，我哋都會認真去考慮同埋研究。咁所以並不存在話係偏聽。呢個時候，特區政府要爭取市民嘅信任同埋支持，一定係唔可以偏聽。所以我哋一定係同唔同階層嘅人士咧嚟到作呢個溝通同埋對話，亦都唔存在話特別去為咗某一個工作，譬如施政報告啊嗰啲嚟到去做咩嘅動員嘅工作。不過當然啦，我相信喺同市民對話過程裏邊咧，或多或少都一定會涉及有啲政策係令到佢哋今日有啲不滿。咁所以如果市民喺對話期間同我哋談政策嘅問題，我哋當然要認真考慮俾一個政策嘅回應。政策嘅回應可以係施政報告做，可以喺施政報告以外做。譬如大家留意到啦，因為知道經濟下行已經出現咗啦，我哋都先後財政司司長先後2次公布咗2批嘅保就業、撐企業嘅措施。咁所以呢啲政策嘅回應呢，係只要有需要，我哋一定會積極考慮咧，同埋係盡快咧作出呢個回應嘅。至於有人揣測昨日嘅4個行動嘅目的，我喺呢度再重申一次啦。4個行動只有一個目的或者只係為咗一樣嘢咧嚟到去做嘅，就係希望能夠走出困局，令到我哋嘅香港社會咧去回復翻呢個秩序，令到香港係一個翻去我哋好熟悉嘅香港，唔係好似過去2-3個月出現咗好多嘅情況，令到市民咧係非常之焦慮。當然呢個要走出困局，而家擺喺眼前最重要嘅係停止暴力，係嚴正執法，嚟到去恢復翻嗰個平靜。但係如果冇呢個環境，我哋係咪完全唔做嘢？我哋都會做，但係我希望市民明白，市民亦都一定支持。如果每日都仲有呢啲咁嘅暴力喺度進行緊呢，事實上亦都係廣泛性咁影響緊香港呢個城市嘅正常嘅運作，同埋市民嘅正常嘅生活。
最後一條藍色衫嘅林
係想問翻呢，就係即係關於個獨立調查委員會嗰度啦。其實有建制派嘅議員啦，都公開講到而家即係成立嗰個委員會咧，係解決嗰個困局嘅唯一方法啦。其實可唔可以講下，即係而家北京同埋或者特區政府啦，就住嗰個獨立委員會嗰度係咪已經落咗閘，絕對唔會考慮咧？可唔可以清楚講？因為琴日你嗰個發言嗰度只係話唔應該另設一個委員會啦。咁呢方面係點咧？同埋就住即係你嗰4項嘅行動裏邊就講到話會落區啦，同埋會有一個嘅揾專家去到研究一啲深層次嘅問題啦。會唔會話其實根本就冇對準到而家嗰個問題嘅焦點啦？民意好清楚就係嗰5大訴求啦，係咪即係顯示即係而家餘下嗰4個訴求，你哋根本就冇辦法再處理㗎啦？只會聽4個訴求以外嘅意見呢？最後就係頭先都冇答到，就係嗰個點解會委任即係林定國同埋余黎青萍作為呢個即係加入呢個監警會？即係有冇揾過民主派嘅人士加入？係佢哋拒絕啦，還是根本冇揾過咧？唔該。
最後呢個題目3個問題嚇。第一咧就昨天就住5大訴求嘅回應咧係相當全面同埋清楚㗎啦。針對獨立調查委員會，政府嘅立場咧係因為所有涉及警方嘅執法嘅行動已經有既定嘅法定同埋獨立嘅機制嚇。我時常都強調佢係法定同埋獨立嘅機制嚇。而且喺今次裏邊咧，佢亦都喺佢嘅職權範圍裏邊咧，以一個最客觀、最持平同埋最廣泛去吸納呢啲意見嘅方法嚟做，包括呼籲公眾咧可以提供資料啦，包括委聘呢5位嘅海外嘅專家啦，所以嗰種嚴謹性同埋認真性、客觀性咧係不容置疑。所以政府嘅立場就係呢個工作必須要交翻俾獨立法定嘅監警會進行。我哋係唔認同另外揾一個獨立調查委員會咧嚟去調查警方嘅工作。第二咧就係你話5大訴求係咪其他唔可以做？亦都喺琴日嘅答覆裏邊咧係已經詳細回應咗啦。除咗當然喺第一個，大家要知道我哋已經完全全面具體咁回應咗第一個訴求，就係撤回呢個條例草案嚇。其他嘅訴求，我希望大家都留意到我昨日嘅回應啦嚇。有一啲係違反咗法治精神，特區政府唔能夠做一啲違反法治精神、係不符合基本法嘅決定啊嘛。因為要我哋喺今日所有嘅被捕人士要將佢釋放，唔追究、唔檢控一啲犯咗刑事罪行，甚至係嚴重嘅刑事罪行嘅人士。呢個係偏離咗香港嘅法治精神，係不能夠接受。所以呢一點係好清晰嘅嚇。至於喺落區方面去聽社會嘅問題，正如我頭先轉述啦，喺外國好多經驗都係每一次發生呢啲大型嘅騷亂咧，佢一定係有一啲遠因近因嚇。我亦都聽到好多意見。係既然我哋喺6月中已經係停止咗修例工作，點解由6月中到而家仍然有咁多呢啲嘅示威啊衝突咧？佢一定係反映有好多深層次嘅問題，同埋社會各界嘅不滿嘅。咁所以對症下藥，特區政府都要處理呢啲問題，否則即使今次能夠止暴制亂，下一次又激發咗呢啲問題浮咗上水面嘅時候，香港又會承受一次好大嘅衝擊。咁所以我覺得咧，呢個工作係非常之值得去做。我哋亦都希望透過個對話平台咧，同社會各界一齊去做。至於係每一次委任入呢啲法定機構或者諮詢架構嘅過程咧，我哋係就唔方便可以同大家公開。但係昨天公布委任呢2位嘅成員咧，都係有豐富嘅經驗，相信咧亦都會能夠有助於監警會嘅工作。多謝大家。